In this video, we're going to be talking about a terrifying sequence of events that left a woman defenseless and her life shattered into pieces as a tragedy followed her around every dark corner of her life. Dorothy was a 32-year-old single mother known by her friends and family as a very caring and loving person. She built her life pretty much all around her 4-year-old, her friends, and her family. Everybody that knew her was very close to her. She and her son lived in Stanton, California, which is about a 20-minute or so drive from Anaheim, where her parents lived, and she worked as a secretary for Swinger's Psych Shop and Custom John's shop. Overall, she lived her life pretty modestly, pretty quiet to herself, very much so. She'd go to work, she'd stick to her schedule, she'd get her hours in at the job and go back home, being a mostly homebody, spending time with her son. She was used to a whole lifestyle, she had her things going for her, and everything seemed pretty, consistent for the most part, but it all just got ripped away one day, and she started getting some pretty devious, some eerie and creepy phone calls from a certain specific person. Dorothy was receiving these calls, and they weren't just eerie. They were more so about to put her life into danger that she would never foresee before her very eyes. They started very abruptly, but once they started, they didn't stop. And they were from a darker toned individual, a grungy man's voice that seemingly knew everything about Dorothy, where she was going most of her days, her schedule, just everything that she would do at home. He had been keeping a close eye on her every little move throughout her lifestyle, and she was going to find out that she pretty much had a stalker. And this wasn't just any ordinary stalker. Dorothy would recount things that he would say to her, places that she'd been with her son, the time that she'd go to sleep at night, even when she would go around the establishment that she worked. Somebody from some sort of distance somewhere had kept a close eye on her for a very long time. And not only was this man, this mysterious voice of a stalker, following her every move, but as he was calling her more and more often, when this person would call Dorothy, he would profess his love for her, telling her he was in love with her, that they were meant to be together, that he wanted to spend time with her, that she was his. Now, was this about to be Dorothy's ultimate demise? The stalker would even show up to Dorothy's place of work, uninvited, unannounced, without Dorothy even realizing or knowing about it. She would just be doing what she had to do on the clock, and she would later find out as she was walking into the parking lot to get to her car that the stalker left a dead rose on one account. Would you guys feel like your safety was at risk if somebody knew your car or where you worked, calling you and now leaving you a gift? It's just sends chills down my spine, and same with Dorothy. So when she felt this urge, she felt that she needed to tell someone at this point, and she ended up telling her mother. And she would explain, this guy, this stalker, he's been watching my every move, and he sounds familiar, but I just can't quite place who it is. Now, to a usual person, somebody that gets out or hangs out with people or is a sort of social butterfly, a stalker could be a crazy ex or a friend or maybe an ex-friend that was out to get you or trying to pull a weird prank on you for some reason, but this wasn't Dorothy's case. She wasn't a social butterfly. She kept to herself and enjoyed being a homebody with her son. She rarely even dated. So this couldn't have been a crazy ex. This was someone else, someone that she had never met before. But nonetheless, things started to become a lot worse really fast, to the point where this person would call and call and call on a daily basis. It happened pretty frequently at this point. It was like something out of the movie Scream. And one of these points, it got so bad that the stalker called her and said, "Okay, now, you're going to come to me, you're going to meet me, and I'm going to cut you up into tiny little pieces. I'm going to kill you and cut you up, and nobody's ever going to find you." What would you do at this point? Because I would call the SWAT team and move to a different country. But seriously, can you trace the call? No, you're just a usual individual. Can you call the police? Maybe, but what is there to go off of? Can you go to a friend's house? Well, how much would that really do for your safety if this person already knows your exact whereabouts? Well, Dorothy didn't do any of that. She took a completely different approach. She decided, no, you know what, I'm not going to get a gun, call the cops, not even get some pepper spray. Instead, I'm going to sign up for some karate classes. I'm going to learn some martial arts to be able to defend myself if I ever should get into a physical altercation with somebody threatening my life. That is, as far as she knew, a man. And for some people, maybe this would work. In Dorothy's case, she had a lot on her plate. She had a toddler of a son that she needed to take care of. She had her job, and she had to drive a good distance to get to work in the first place. She was going to go to work, continue on with her life as per usual. just her regular schedule. She would even still be getting these calls from the same stalker, but she just kind of went head on. And you know what? Whatever, she said, went on as usual and even dropped off her son on a particular day with her parents, because that day she was actually going to go to a work meeting. And this meeting, it was a work meeting, yes, and the stalker wasn't there, but it wasn't going to be a usual meeting. It wasn't going to be Dorothy's schedule that she could expect things to go according to plan, because this didn't go according to plan. This meeting was going to be a little different. It was different because when she went, she noticed, things were normal, but one of her coworkers just so happened to look a little sick, a little out of it, pale, dazed and confused. And it turns out this coworker had a spider bite, something that they were pretty sick from and needed medical attention probably. And Dorothy was compassionate. She cared about people, so she involved herself in the situation. But this isn't good, you guys. When you have a schedule and you can't stick to that schedule and it puts you just a little bit off, that opens up a window for danger. She, being a compassionate person, along with her coworker that was sick from the spider bite and another coworker, a trio of coworkers, she decided to go with them and take her coworker with a spider bite to UCI Medical Center so that this coworker could get treated. She also made a quick, detour. Instead of just going straight to the hospital, she went to her parents' house on the way there and let them know that, well, what was happening. Let them know that she wasn't going to be at work or this work meeting. She was going to be at the hospital if she was needed or if they were looking for her or something. And while she was at her parents' house, another thing yet changed, and it was her physical appearance. She changed a bit of her outfit. She took off part of her outfit and put on a scarf, and then she was ready to go to the hospital. So this stalker would have known that she was not at work, that she was at a meeting. Maybe the person was still following her. So were they following her throughout all of these pit stops? Did they know that she stopped at her parents' house and changed this scarf? Well, no. She finally had gotten to the UCI Medical Center with her coworkers, and her coworker was about to get treated, and well, it was a normal hospital visit as far as she was concerned at this point. Now, while they were all finally at the hospital and her friend was getting treated, her and the other coworker were pretty much just taking it upon themselves to wait it out. They read a magazine, they were just sitting there and talking amongst themselves, and before they knew it, the night got away from them. Almost midnight. It was about 11 at night, and then finally, their coworker that got bit was released. But this is an hours-long thing, and it being night, it being an unusual circumstance, nothing was really looking great for Dorothy. The night was getting more mysterious, but maybe she didn't know that just yet. So Dorothy went out to get the car, and her being a compassionate person, she would do something like this because she didn't want her coworker to have to walk across the parking lot, not feeling well, out in the dark. It was probably cold. She was just, trying to take care of the person that she took there in the first place. And her other coworker went with the coworker that got the spider bite to get the prescription medication to treat the aftermath of the Black Widow venom of his spider bite. But Dorothy wasn't necessarily free and clear of this stalker, but nonetheless, she went outside alone to get the car. She kind of made a bad combination of nonchalant, sort of careless, maybe overly confident decisions about her life. Maybe she thought, I'm with people, so therefore I'm gonna be alright. But it was too many out-of-the-blue decisions for her. And while her two coworkers were ready to leave, well, they were planning on getting picked up by Dorothy in her car at the entrance of this hospital, so that's where they went to go and meet her, but once they got there, she was nowhere to be found. So instead of waiting for Dorothy to get there, the two coworkers thought, you know what? Let's just go and get Dorothy ourselves. Let's go and meet her at where we originally parked. This time, they quickly started to understand that things weren't just unusual for Dorothy. They were now unusual for all three of them, because now her two coworkers were about to experience the terror that Dorothy has been experiencing too, from the car that Dorothy took them in, because it wasn't in that same parking spot anymore. Her coworkers found that car. It was instead driving at them, directly at them at high speeds, with its headlights on full blast, almost like it was trying to hit them. And they couldn't see anything because the headlights were basically blinding their eyesight towards trying to figure out if it was Dorothy driving the car, or maybe someone stole their car. And right when it was looking like it was right about to hit them, it didn't. It instead slowed down really abruptly and made a quick turn out from the parking lot and drove away on the highway out and about. Now, at this point, her coworkers were just utterly confused and pretty distraught. I mean, they thought that Dorothy was about to run them over. Now she left abruptly, as far as they could see. Maybe they thought she had something to do with her son. Maybe something happened. But after a few hours of waiting, and she still didn't return, they decided Let's call Dorothy's parents and see if they knew where she is, if maybe she stopped at their house to do another thing yet again, another detour, but her parents hadn't seen her either. So at this point, nobody has seen her, and nobody knew where she was. Nobody knew what happened to her. This was out of character for her. She would never usually just storm off like that, especially without her son or letting somebody close to her know what she was doing. Her mother was getting worried because she also did know that Dorothy had a stalker, and she needed to make sure her daughter was safe. Later that night, after a bit more waiting to see if Dorothy would somehow show up and just everything was normal, well, things were about to get a lot worse. Things were definitely not normal because at 5 in the morning, they ended up finding Dorothy's car. And it wasn't Dorothy inside the car. The car itself was on fire, 10 miles away from where the hospital was to begin with. And Dorothy was still nowhere to be found. Well, a week later, after they had found her car burning to a crisp in the middle of the early morning, her mother got a call, and guess who it was? Her mother got a call from the same grungy, angry, stalkerish voice of a man. And when her mother answered that call, all the stalker said was, "Are you Dorothy's mother?" "Yes." At that point, there was a moment of silence. Her mother didn't really hear anything else besides a heavy breathing tone. After an abrupt moment of silence, the stalker said, "I have her," and just hung up. Now, finally, after Dorothy's mother started to understand and really uncover just what was going on with this car fire, she finally decided to let the cops know all about this, and they started a search. There was an entire local police department that searched the nearby area for weeks. After a couple of days, it's said that the missing person is not going to be found, and so were they ever going to find her? In fact, it took 2 months, but yet another person got a phone call, yet again from the stalker. And this person wasn't just any person. It was a journalist, a reporter, an editorial manager at the Santa Ana Register. And they pretty much said during this phone call, they heard the same cryptic, eerie, angry, and grungy man voice. But this time he didn't just have her. This time he told this journalist, "I have her. I killed her, and she said that she was being faithful. She said that she didn't have anybody else, but she was being unfaithful to another man. This man was the same man that she took with the spider bite. The one that she was trying to care after, yeah, he killed her over that. His obsession caused a whole turn of events, and Dorothy's life was the result." The caller told the journalist that he knew that Dorothy took this man to get treated for a spider bite. He also knew that she made a detour and stopped by her parents' house and changed out her scarf. He knew everything that happened that night. In fact, the only thing that he said that didn't really make sense is that she called him that night. She called him directly, and they talked amongst themselves a little bit before the whole car lit on fire type of situation happened. And it doesn't make sense because this happened in the 80s. And the only way that this could have happened as Dorothy calling her stalker was if there was a landline somewhere. As if there was a landline in the hospital that she called him directly to another landline. A couple of years passed, and pretty much everybody, that journalist, her parents, even the police, everybody gave up on the search for Dorothy. And one day, a foreman at a construction company called Mako Construction, the early morning of 6, 7, 8 a.m., they were getting ready to lay down some pipe for some telephone lines. One of them stumbled upon some charred human bones, remains, as they were digging to lay down this pipe. Now, this was about half a mile from Anaheim, where Dorothy worked, where she went to that meeting, the hospital, everything. It wasn't even that far away, but what they found there was a complete human skull, 2 femurs, a pelvis, pretty much a almost complete human skeleton buried under rubble, charred like as if it was burned in a fire, and they even found dog bones. It was found to be Dorothy's skeleton that had died 4 years earlier. Now, the investigators that had arrived on scene, analyzing her bones and determined that she had died 4 years earlier, also determined that she had died as of a cause of something falling upon her. They really couldn't understand why it was separated over about 25 feet. All of these bones were scattered, but what they did say was that it could have been to the account of a brush fire that swept over the area, which is why her bones were charred. This didn't make any sense to me. I mean, if anything made sense, I think that she burned alive in the car. That's what at least goes through my mind. What do you guys think? How do you think Dorothy died? Alone. Left with a dog.